Hello, everybody, and welcome to the next I can't remember the number. I think it's the 14th Young DevOps event. We're here with the incredible Tina this evening from XDesign, who'll be giving us a really good presentation and talk and discussion around her incredible career, including leading up to her current role, which is Chief Cloud Officer at XDesign. So yeah, if you would like to put any questions in the chat, please feel free to put them on. We've got a few events planned in the next couple of months, including an incredible event in September, which is currently being organised for students under 18. So if you've got anybody in your family or yourself who'd like to attend, please just follow me on LinkedIn and keep updated. And also on the Young DevOps Meetups page. We've got one in-person event in October, which is currently also in the works, and then an online remote event probably next month, but we're still figuring out. As always, if you'd like to speak, sponsor, or host, please just get in touch with myself and we'll have a chat. But yeah, welcome, Tina. And yeah, if you could just give a brief explanation of what you sort of do at the moment.
So obviously I'm the Chief Cloud Officer for XDesign. I'm basically building the cloud capability there. So there was a small capability at XDesign before I joined, but my aim is to grow it to about maybe 50 by the middle of next year, and then obviously 150 after that. But it's basically to have an end-to-end, to help clients have an end-to-end cloud journey from cloud consultant to cloud engineering.
Nice, cool. Right, okay, if you want to move on to the next. Perfect. Cool. Right, I will, yeah, if anybody's got any questions, I'll put them on the screen. I'm going to pop off now and let Tina run the show. Cool, thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going to talk today about my journey through IT, and also have some little antidotes to go with it. So yeah, I'm really privileged to actually get to be a Chief Cloud Officer and on the exec and board of XDesign. And I think it's been a long journey to actually get to this point. So I've been in IT for 25 years. And although I kind of feel like I don't look it, but I kind of know that I do look it, if you know what I mean. So it's been a journey, and I really want to show you have to have a lot of guts and determination to succeed and get to this level within your career. If I remember how to click. So this is what we're going to look at. So how I ended up in IT, the roles I've had, why IT is not easy, and what I've learned during my time in IT, and some Q&A, if we have any. So my career didn't start out in IT. I was actually a semi-pro dancer. So when I grew up, I loved Dirty Dancing and Billy Elliot, and I did a lot of dancing myself. And actually, I was pro before I was actually semi-pro before I actually took my GCSEs. I loved dancing, and actually it was my actual true passion in life. But unfortunately, because I was a wild child, I actually broke my leg buggy riding, and unfortunately that meant that I actually had to give up a career in dancing. So it was kind of like a couple of months of what do I do with my life now, because realistically I hadn't really concentrated on my GCSEs. So I left school with 6 GCSEs, and realistically I found school quite hard. Wasn't the best. I come from a council estate in Northern Ireland. I basically was told that because I struggled through school that I wouldn't really amount to anything. And it was cool with me, because I'm kind of one of those people that are quite determined to actually make things out of their life. So had a reflection. So as part of that GCSE, I did keyboard applications, which in those days was learning to type on a Mac. And I thought, actually, that's quite cool. I actually enjoyed doing that. Now, learning to type on a keyboard is not the same as actually doing a BTEC in computing. So I had enough GCSEs to get a BTEC in computing, and I passed that. And I found that I was learning COBOL and working off little mainframes, and the computers were Windows 95. So that tells you how old I was. And so I passed that. I had to learn networking and systems integration and all of that lovely stuff. And then by chance, I actually went to university. So I wasn't going to go to university. I was going to stay in Northern Ireland and do a HND in computing. And I went to university again. It was a lot. It was full on. To be honest with you, I like to party. So I spent my first year drinking, and my second year I actually knuckled down, and I started writing essays, and I actually was pulled aside and said, you need to go for a dyslexia test. So I went for a dyslexia test and found that I was borderline dyslexic, but they needed a bit more time to actually prove it. So I went through, third year, I went to Florence as a stagiaire through Huddersfield University, and practically I was really good at my job, but like studying was a no-go thing for me. So in my final year, I got support because I got finally deemed as dyslexic. I got a bit longer in my exams, and I went from being like a CD student to a B student overnight. And so I managed to walk out actually of university with a 2-1. I still don't know how I did it, but I somehow did do it. It wasn't, to a lot of people it was standard, but to me it wasn't a standard way to do things, because a lot of people are confident like when they go to school and then obviously do a BTEC and then university. And actually in my family, still the only female with a degree. It's not the done thing for like an Irish woman to have a degree, and really more expected to have 4 children and 3 marriages, if I'm really honest. So this is my career journey. So I was really lucky. While I was actually at university, I actually had to support myself. I didn't have the money to actually be able to go to university. So I got a job at Halifax General Insurance, and I worked 30 hours a week there. And I also then did my university. Spent 2 years actually at Halifax General Insurance. And at that time, I had a really thick Irish accent. I would be like, what about you? How you doing? And I'd be speaking to Yorkshire people who had no idea what I was talking about. So at that point, I actually realized that I needed to talk slower. And it gave me a sense of purpose to actually, have a professional job. And at the same time, I was doing insurance claims. And I learned actually like how insurance claims works and all of that lovely stuff. So you would think actually like, well, how would this get me a job at Compaq Computing? So I went in the last cohort of people for the job interview. It was a full day assessment centre. And I was late by 40 minutes because I'd never been to London before, had to go to Holborn. I got there and I was really late. And the first assessment was that I had to work out what to do when the data centre had been waterlogged and what would the next steps be. And I had to write this whole essay about, and then I realized actually my insurance stuff would come into this, because realistically you'd get dehumidifiers, you would stop the leak, you would clear out the servers and all of this lovely stuff. And what was quite funny is 4 weeks later, I was offered the job at Compaq, and I went through the other assessments, obviously technically and all of that lovely stuff. I was the only technical female out of 200 to actually be offered a role at Compaq. And I went there to be working the secure network, which actually hosted all the managed services. So I was actually doing ASP.NET and Windows and lovely stuff like that. So at the time, I was there for 2 years. I loved Compaq. It was a really great place to work. I moved to Reading down south, and HP took over Compaq. And I worked for HP for a couple more years. They started making redundancies and the culture started to go, and they moved to offshore with, or nearshore with Bratislava and India. So I was losing a lot of friendships that I'd bought. And for me, I was actually moved into the networks team, and I became a network engineer. So I was working with things like WatchGuard and checkpoint firewalls and lovely stuff like that. And I was only I was still on my graduate, but when I actually got promoted, I was a level 3 network engineer, and actually a lot of people sat at that level for a very long time. I left HP because obviously the culture had got so bad with the redundancies that I moved to Vodafone, and there I worked in TCS, so the technical customer services, doing actually fixing BlackBerry. So I was worked with the BlackBerry devices. I checked them against the network. I learned what GPRS was, And obviously at that point, there was still only GPRS before we got 3G and 4G. And basically learned how to break fix BlackBerries on the network, and also the servers that came with that for big banks and doing the disaster recovery. So I learned how to work with data, and it was really great. Then Numero was actually my first consultancy gig, and that was to work with workflow systems, and that was taking emails and automating them to email, and that was the same with faxes and a lot of other things at that time. So then after all of that experience, I became a contractor of my own company, and I worked for Game, doing like WebSphere migrations and for GameStation and Game. I then went around the world for 6 months off the back of actually being a contractor, and that was a great experience. Came back in 2008 when there was a big, downturn in the market, and I became a project manager at Calibrate. And I realized then that actually my infrastructure experience could come in handy. They were running like a small managed service, and it was quite bad. They had people connecting from US over to servers that sat in Manchester at UK Fast, and the network speed was horrendous, and the experience for the clients were quite bad. So in the end, I became a technical consultant. Then from there, became a head of, as head of operations. So I actually built the managed service and moved it all over to Rackspace. And I had a team of platform engineers, service delivery people to manage the clients. And actually we spread it from London to Dallas, then to Hong Kong, and then Australia. And then we had people sitting in New Jersey and Australia helping us manage. So it's amazing, like in life, like you can go from just being an engineer and a consultant to actually like being a head of in a very short space of time, just from actually the experience that you had. So we started to look at Azure, Calibrate, because it was a window, a .NET platform. And so I went to BGSS as a cloud consultant. So again, in my career, I've gone up and down. And the reason for that is when tech changes, you've got to be able to like move with the times. It means that you've actually got to realize that sometimes to go down is to go back up again. So with BGSS, I became a cloud consultant, and I learned for 18 months, I did a Co-op's membership platform, which is where you basically like you buy some stuff at Co-op and you use your membership card and you get 5% cash back with 1% towards charity. And at the time, Co-op had a bad reputation and they wanted to re-platform this, and we re-platformed it to AWS. And I managed a team of cloud engineers to basically build up their AWS experience, AWS accounts, and basically keep on actually adding to it. So from there, we did the membership platform, then we did the wills platform, then we did the funeral care platform, and many other things before they incorporated it back into Co-op Group. Then joined And Digital as a DevOps lead, and basically very quickly became a cloud practice lead for the North, and started to build a cloud practice. And when I joined, was very much like cloud was you build a Kubernetes cluster and you put pipeline on it. And there's nothing wrong with that, but they didn't understand the full scope of end-to-end cloud, which is you look at cloud strategy, cloud operating model, you then actually learn migration, or you build something, and then actually you've got to be able to operate it and optimize it. So I basically built them a cloud business over a course of 2 years. I started off with a cloud in the North, and then I built cloud in the South, and I handed that over to another exec. I became an exec at that point. And then I basically built them another cloud business for Scotland and Yorkshire, and then handed that over to another exec. And by that point, I was like, well, what else do I do? So I moved to XDesign as their chief cloud officer to actually build them a cloud business within XDesign. And for me, that was actually the most important thing, was that I could reuse my skills and actually do it again, and maybe do it a little bit more my way. and also have the flexibility just to maybe take a step back and know what lessons are learned and how not to do it, and actually how to actually do it right, a bit right next time, if that makes sense. Kind of messed it up, but never mind. So why is IT not easy? So as a woman, I've had to constantly prove myself, and a lot of the time you actually get ignored. So when I was actually working at Co-op, a bloke came up to me. I used to have a male name, so I used to have Tina as or Christina, which is my real name. But I used to actually have a male name, which was Tino. And actually I used to hide behind the Tino name a lot. And the reason for that was because people come up asking for Tino. In those days, we used to use IRC a lot. And that was my username on there. And that was my name from university, because I used to play football and I was a bit of a tomboy. And what was quite interesting is that people come up and ask for Tino, not realizing that it was me. So I used to say that he was away, and then they used to come and type on IRC asking for stuff to be done. I used to get comments like, are you still on the YTS scheme, which is like somebody who's like under 16 or just turned 16 and looking for a job at the time. And I was actually 23 years of age. I used to get like, as a female, are you sure you want to be doing this job? Because realistically, you should be at home having children. And then I used to ignore it a lot of the time, but the Tino thing, I managed to actually not have a lot of the abuse that most probably would have been around at that time by hiding behind it. And it's one of the things that I loved about working at Compact, but it was also the one thing that where people didn't realize the work that I did. And so I spent most of my time constantly trying to prove myself in the early years. But in the early years, I was stalked. So I was stalked at university, and then I was stalked in a couple of jobs. I was harassed quite badly, and I was bullied for most probably 8 or 9 of the years that I've worked. So how did I deal with it? I always think that karma comes around, and it does come around. For those people that have mistreated you, generally, you meet them in a later life. And that's actually what happened for me. So I met somebody who would stand over me while I was actually on my laptop. And at the time, you'd be like on Facebook for 5 minutes. Oh, you're on Facebook. Are you not doing your job? I'd be like, yes, I'm doing my job. I'm having a break. Then it would be like, Tina, you never do any work, even though I was actually one of the people who actually brought a lot of the work in. And then at the same time, they would be constantly saying, you're not technical enough, you're not good enough. And literally, like, they would find a way to raise a complaint about me, even though I actually hadn't done anything wrong. So I met somebody about 4 years ago who I got in a lift, and I got out of the lift, and they were standing right in front of me, the person who would go out of their way to make life uncomfortable for me. And I said, how's it going? And he goes, oh, it's not that great. I don't really like this new job and all of this kind of stuff. And I just went, well, life is really great for me. And I'm now an exec at And Digital. And he was still doing what he was doing from the time that I'd met him. And to be honest with you, it showed that realistically, if you do a good job, people will always be threatened by you. And they will always find a way to make you feel uncomfortable. But the thing that did for me was that made me more determined to actually succeed, because not many females, or actually, technical people, including males, actually succeed to get to a role of this, as an exec. And so, like, you have to get uncomfortable, and you have to deal with it, and you have to get a bit of a backbone, and you also have to learn how to tell people, no, you're not doing this, and also stand up for yourself. So when somebody's doing something bad, you need to report it, but you also need to know that in your own mind that you've said what you needed to say. So, and I learned that the hard way, and I got more comfortable as I got older to do it. And And because actually as a woman, you constantly proving yourself, you're constantly learning. And in my late 20s, I had a huge bout of imposter syndrome, actually really struggled and never felt like I was ever good enough in everything that I was doing. And actually in that time, I made more mistakes because realistically, I was trying to take too much in. But I realized actually over time that actually by me failing or me messing up, actually, I realized how not to do it the next time. People are always going to judge you for the quality of work that you do, and people are always going to remember that. So I meet people like later in life who go, Tina, I remember that you were pretty anal around making sure that was done properly, and that's what you get counted for. So I've always tried to maintain not a perfect, everything has to be perfect, but maintain a good quality of work so that people know that I'm not going to deliver a piece of rubbish to them. And that means that actually that sets my value for myself and actually the people that work for me. And I think the one thing I've learned is that you could work your whole life and still work after it, because IT does not stop. So you have to actually define good boundaries for the job that you're in, and also actually for the role that you're in, and actually for yourself, to make actually life a lot easier for yourself. So what have I learned about being in IT? You really do need to be determined to succeed, and you need a lot of allies and a community around you. So I didn't really find a community of people until 8 years ago. And they're still with me. Like, I still talk to them. I know that I can talk to them about anything and they'll be there for me. They'll also maybe move role to role with me, or actually they'll meet me for a beer and then they'll let me have a little rant about stuff, or actually they'll ask for a cup of coffee or a beer and then I'll go meet them. And I think in life you do need those, no matter what. They can be your friends, but also they can just be people that you know, and you know that you can trust. So whatever path you set, you've got to realize that you can have a vision, but it can take you longer than to get here. So I failed 3 times to become an exec. So at the job at Calibrate, I was hoping to be a VP or an SVP, and I got turned down repeatedly. I also got said that if I did the managed service, I would become a certain type of role. I then looked at other things that I'd done and realized that actually, I'd missed out on stuff. I actually went back and asked somebody who was on the exec team why I didn't get the roles. And one was, Tina, you're a bit feisty. 2, you're a woman, and 3, somebody had it in for you. And that was my lesson in life, about finding the right allies in work to actually help me get to where I want to go and actually help me succeed. And I actually realized that actually you do need to build a network around you of people that can believe in who you are. So, and that's why you've got to surround yourself with people who want to make you a better version of yourself. And if you're not happy, look, I've had 9 jobs in 25 years. A lot of people think that's a lot, but my longest job is 4 years, 11 months. And the reason for that is you cannot get complacent. Sometimes you need to move on for technology. Secondly, you need to move on for... Betty, stop. You need to move on for your own sake, or third, the company's no longer good for you. And really, you've got to love tech and be really passionate about it. And that's me before my dog goes a bit mental. I'm going to pass back to Ethan.
Thank you for that. A really, really inspiring story. That's probably, I'd say, one of the best stories of how someone has turned around their career. I'm speechless, to be honest with you. That's really, really good. Yes, has anybody got any sort of thoughts or questions in the comments? Just give it a couple of moments. There's usually a bit of a delay, but you've had some. It's been some really good feedback. So yeah, Cadbury says really interesting journey. Shine has put imposter syndrome. Must be really hard to to overcome. Baz has put, well done, whatever. I really like that phrase. Whatever doesn't kill you only makes you stronger. And yeah, Elif has put, really proud. And yeah, I've been speaking a lot to Elif. She's got a really good story as well. How trying to get into the industry, but no, that's really good. Cool. We'll just give it a couple more moments. Here we go. Got one question. So, how do you deal with imposter syndrome and moving companies?
So there's always a bit where you either at the start you're nervous. So a good example is actually when I joined XDesign. When I left And, I was quite burnt out. I joined a couple months later to XDesign, and I was sitting, in a meeting in the boardroom, and I was going, "What the hell am I doing here?" So you have to. There's a point like when you start your new job where you either become uncomfortable or you're so comfortable because you know what you're doing. So I had to actually deal with the first couple of months of like, am I in the right job? Am I doing the right thing? But then I kind of realized that I had a lot to give. So I had to remember, like I'd done this before. I remembered that, like I had to realistically concentrate on what I was trying to achieve and how to achieve it and set the strategy. And that's what I did, and that allowed me to get some of the confidence back and also deal with the imposter syndrome that was coming on, because the imposter syndrome gives you anxiety, and so if you allow anxiety to rule, it kind of does make you feel like that actually, I don't know what the word is around anxiety, but it can make you feel like you're very small in that moment of time when realistically you need to actually be the bigger self. Make sense to people?
Yeah, definitely. No, it's something which I faced as well. Imposter syndrome. Yeah, very young in a quite high up role. It's definitely something which it takes a while to overcome. But yeah, definitely. Yeah, John's raised a good point. Don't wait 20 years. I have seen that a fair bit recently. I've had a few people reach out to myself who've been in the same job for 20, 30 years. And now obviously looking to move, and they've been so used to being in that scenario, it's hard to sort of move on. And yeah, definitely. Yeah, John's put, what is the best way to build allies? Allies.
Best way to build allies is to find people that actually have the same. So Jonathan Grice, who's on, is actually somebody I met a couple of years ago, and actually we're very similar people working in cloud. So I think you kind of need to build not you can have people that challenge you, and I think that's really great. So I have a lot of people that challenge me. So I think a good understanding of that is like, actually one of my peers is Malcolm Seagrave, and he challenges me. He challenges me in a different way than other people. So I've built up some great relationships with people who either challenge me or actually I can actually have a proper conversation with, and we know that it's not going to be like upsetting, or if it does get heated, we can walk away or we can have a beer and just laugh about it. So, and I think that's the difference, like I have, like, I would say 10 to 15 people that I have built up over the last 8 years, where I can go and have a proper conversation with them. I can actually go and say how I feel is the first part. And the second part is, do you know what? This is really annoying me. Do you not to see this is happening in the industry, and having a really great ranty conversation? When you meet those kind of individuals, you know that actually they're your people that you actually want to like spend time with. And that's what I think makes a really good ally.
Interesting. What advice? Okay, so another question here. So, what advice would you give to prospective engineers who are struggling with a lot of things you overcome, syndrome, discrimination, etc.?
So the advice I would give is that actually the industry is hopefully not the same as when I started out. Obviously, I know that that's sometimes not the case, depending on the company that you go to. So one thing I would do is I would actually really look into the company that you're going to, or talk to actually people within the company, and get to know them before you actually were interviewed at them. So unfortunately for Ewan, who owns XDesign, he had to go through about 8 interviews with me, so that I knew that actually it was a good fit. for me and for him, and actually for the group of people that we work with. But I actually think that it's important that that you actually do your research, because finding a good company can be hard. Finding a company that values people is also hard. And I would also say that actually it's not you, it's them. So the best thing I can ever say is that when somebody rejects you or something happens, it's not you, it's them. And actually, if you have good values and actually good understanding of who you are as a person, you can actually look past it and go, and I'm going to say this and you'll maybe think that I'm being rude, but what a dick is the nicest way to say it, you know. And I think if you can think of it in that terms, it won't get to you as much and the imposter syndrome won't come out as much. And that's what I kind of rule in life is when somebody's being quite rude with me, I just go, look, I actually do it in my head and I do the little shake of eyes and I go, what a dick, because it's bad on them, it's not bad on me. I won't treat people that way.
Definitely. It's got another question from Baz. So what was key skill which helped you move from a journey from being an engineer to exec?
So this is an interesting one. So to come to be an exec is quite different. So I got an insight through and about how to be an exec when I was the first Andy on the board. And I realized that I can understand none of the terminology. So I actually went and did an exec MBA. I just don't talk about it. And the reason for that is you have to give up some skills to gain new skills. So I had to give up, like I couldn't code anymore to become an exec. It's simple as that. So you can be technically competent, but you just don't have the time to do that anymore. So you have to actually understand that when you become an exec, you need different skills. So good leadership, good accountability, good commercial awareness, and actually like understand finances. So what's our gross margin? What's our profit? I didn't know any of those things until I actually really looked at it and realized that's the path that I wanted to go. So part of me is actually thinking about doing a DPA, which is like a doctorate in business. So I can actually go to the next level. And the reason that I love business so much is like it's a different challenge. It's a different way of thinking and actually makes you very much a different person when you've been a technical person all your life. And so for me is like I have the construct of being technical and I have the construct of understanding and having that awareness that a lot of technical people don't have, but if they did have, actually it would make them a lot stronger.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I'm looking into MBAs at the moment, and it's definitely that transition period. And I've spoken to quite a few people who've been on a sort of similar journey of going from an engineer to exec, and it's what people don't realize is it's a completely different set of skills. You've got to sort of almost change your entire skill set to meet that kind of interesting.
It's completely different. Doesn't mean you lose skills. It just means that you have to gain new ones, but you also have to know where you're going to let skills go. I think it's the nicest way to say it. It's not about that you couldn't pick it up again. It's about letting stuff go because there's too much to take in, especially for a dyslexic like me. So are you now in sales? No, I'm not in sales. I actually am a chief cloud officer, and the head of sales or exec of sales would most probably kill me for you saying that, because he doesn't want me to actually go there in any way, shape or form. So something I wish I'd realized in my career earlier is that I didn't need to be a perfectionist. So I spent a lot of my 20s trying to perfect everything, trying to make everything perfect, which also caused the imposter syndrome. And then I had to actually then realize the rule was that if 100% was the quality ratio, and people may be offended by this, but some people say that 60% of that 100% is good enough, as where I needed to decide where I sat in all of that. And I made the decision that I would be between 80 and 100%. That would be my perfectionist. That would be like my quality level, that I would know that I would get most things right. And then there would be a little work on the rest and tweaking that needed to be done. But I was actually more like, I was insanely anal. I was like 100, 120%. I needed 100 and 120% to hit everything. And most probably that stagnated me in my career.
Interesting. Yeah, it's something I've also faced quite recently, is that it's how far, it's when do you stop, because you
Yeah.
can make everything look extremely pretty and different things, but it takes a long while. But actually, is it worth just getting out now? Because often things change. That's the way of the industry. So yeah, cool. Have we got any more questions? I think we'll give it a minute or so. For anybody who's missed this talk will be put on YouTube later this week. So if you missed sort of the first half or anything, don't worry. You can rewatch it afterwards. Okay, cool. So I think we'll call it a day there. Thank you very much for coming on tonight, Tina. I really appreciate it. Very inspiring story. Definitely learned a lot. But yeah, no, thank you very much. And for anybody who's still here, we hope to see you at the next Young DevOps event. As I mentioned, we've got one in person next month, and then in September, and then another one in October as well, with a few online events in between. I hope you have a good evening, and hope to see you at the next one. Cool. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.